Hey there, fellow Anglophiles and medical mystery enthusiasts. Today we're diving into a fascinating and somewhat quirky aspect of British medical culture. Ever noticed something peculiar about how surgeons are addressed in British hospitals? It's a small detail, but it speaks volumes about tradition and history. If you're picturing a scene from The Crown with someone in scrubs being called Mr. or Miss, you're not far off. This isn't just a TV trope, it's a real-life practice. That's right, in the UK, surgeons often go by these seemingly less formal titles instead of doctor. Bizarre, right? But there's a method to this madness. Well, buckle up because we're about to dissect the history behind this curious custom. It's a tale that dates back centuries and is rooted in the evolution of the medical profession. It's a tradition that often throws people off, especially those used to the ubiquitous doctor title for all medical professionals. But in the UK, this distinction is a badge of honour. Imagine walking into a hospital in London and hearing, "Mr. Smith will see you now," as you're ushered into surgery. It might sound like a scene from a historical drama, but it's very much a part of modern British medical practice. It's enough to make you wonder if you've accidentally wandered onto the set of a period drama. But this isn't just for show, there's a rich history behind it, but fear not, this isn't a medical misnomer, but a historical hangover with a fascinating backstory. The tradition dates back to the days when surgeons were not university-trained doctors, but were instead skilled tradesmen. Over time, as their training became more formalized, they retained the titles of Mr. and Miss as a nod to their unique heritage. To understand this peculiar practice, we need to rewind a few centuries to a time when surgery was a far cry from the sterile, high-tech affair it is today. Imagine a world where antiseptics and anesthesia were unheard of, and the concept of germs was still a mystery. Picture, if you will, 18th century England, a time when barbers weren't just barbers, they were barber surgeons. These individuals were a common sight in towns and cities, easily recognizable by their iconic red and white poles. Yep, you heard that right. Barber surgeons were the go-to professionals for a variety of medical needs. These multitasking marvels didn't just trim your wig and give you a shave, they also bled you with leeches and lopped off limbs when necessary. They were the emergency room doctors of their day, handling everything from tooth extractions to amputations. Back then, surgery was considered a craft, a trade, not an academic pursuit. It was a hands-on profession, learned through years of practice and experience. Surgeons learned their craft through apprenticeships, not university lectures. Young apprentices would spend years under the tutelage of experienced barber surgeons, mastering the tools and techniques of the trade. They were more akin to skilled artisans than learned scholars. Their expertise was honed through practical experience rather than theoretical knowledge. Physicians, on the other hand, were university-educated gentlemen who diagnosed illnesses, prescribed treatments, and generally avoided anything that involved sharp instruments and too much blood. They were the thinkers, the diagnosticians, leaving the messy work to the barber surgeons. So we had two distinct branches of medicine. The hands-on practical surgeons, who were often seen as craftsmen, working with their hands to heal and repair. And then there were the bookish, theoretical physicians who spent years in universities studying the intricacies of the human body through texts and lectures. Physicians, with their fancy university degrees, earned the right to be called doctor, a title that commanded respect and authority in the medical community. Surgeons, on the other hand, who learned their trade through hands-on experience and apprenticeships, didn't receive the same academic recognition. They were addressed as Mr. or Mr. if you were feeling particularly formal, a reflection of their practical rather than academic expertise. Over time, the lines between surgery and medicine began to blur as the two fields started to recognize the value in each other's approaches. Surgeons started studying anatomy and physiology in greater depth, incorporating more academic knowledge into their practice, and physicians began to recognize the importance of surgical interventions, understanding that sometimes hands-on procedures were necessary to save lives. The two professions, once miles apart, began to merge, creating a more holistic approach to medicine that combined both theory and practice. Yet the tradition of addressing surgeons as Mr., Mrs., Miss, or Miss stuck, a quirky reminder of a time when surgery was seen as a craft honed through apprenticeship, not textbooks. This tradition serves as a fascinating historical footnote, highlighting the evolution of medical professions and the blending of practical and theoretical knowledge over the centuries. Now, you might think that in our modern world of evidence-based medicine and standardized medical training, this archaic tradition would have faded away. But you'd be wrong. The Mr. or Miss title has persisted, becoming a badge of honor, a mark of distinction within the surgical community. It's a way for surgeons to acknowledge their unique historical lineage, to pay homage to those early barber surgeons who paved the way. It's a tradition passed down through generations, a way of distinguishing themselves within the broader medical profession. And let's be honest, there's a certain air of gravitas, a touch of old-world charm to being addressed as Mr. or Miss in surgery.